I call the Honourable Sir Roger Douglas.
Mr. Chairman, I move the question be now put.
No. I call the Honourable Member Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would have been devastated had I not had the opportunity to speak on Clause 5, which I've prepared quite a bit of material on and done quite a bit of background research, and I think it's quite upsetting that Mr. Douglas would want to bring to a close this debate before I think it's run its full course, because what I haven't heard and what I'd like to ask the member and the chair to elaborate on is why it is that American Studies was originally included in the interpretation. A very interesting discussion around why it's been removed, but I am interested in the background as to why it was originally in there. And I think it's interesting because it demonstrates where the Royal Society of New Zealand in particular perceived that New Zealand could benefit in its future research and discussion from an analysis of American Studies. And for Parliament to have decided that it should be removed is absolutely, I think, correct, but I would like to have a little bit of a discussion around the origins of its inclusion. And I think in order to better prepare the House for that discussion, I thought it might be interesting to look at what does American Studies actually include. What is it that we've removed from this bill? And I have to admit that myself did not truly understand the great depth and reach that is American Studies as an interdisciplinary field. And so I did a little bit of, admittedly, web-based research. I employed the favoured technique of the Minister of Finance, and I Googled. And I probably went on to his #1 research website, Wikipedia, and discovered that the interdisciplinary field of American Studies, which also includes American civilization, incorporates quite a wide range of subsets, which I think perhaps on breaking it down into a full analysis, perhaps we could have benefited from. Now, whether or not we then isolate it to one nation state or say that across nations some of these areas would be of use is a debatable point. In fact, I'd encourage my colleagues to perhaps debate that. But within these interdisciplinary fields, we have, and I would like to go through them individually if the House would bear with me on that front. I know Grant Robertson will, and Labor members will. This is a democracy, after all, Mr. Power, and Minister Powers, of course. I encourage him to join the debate on this, given it is a democracy which the government doesn't want to involve itself in currently. The first is economics. This is the first subset of the interdisciplinary field that is American Studies. And I wondered what it is from a study of the American economy that New Zealand could benefit from currently. And I think clearly debt issues is one area. Unemployment, I think the United States has unemployment which is hovering around the 10% mark. Certainly nothing we'd aspire to, but we are on the trajectory to following them currently. But also the significant level of debt. The deficit in the United States is incredible right now, and the level of foreign dependency, particularly on the nation of China, I think is a very vexed question for the United States at the moment. I heard a groan from Mr. Douglas. I think he must agree with me that this is a very interesting area of discussion where perhaps New Zealand would have benefited from some analysis of where the American economy is going. It does affect us, obviously. The second subset, we not only have the economy, but we also have, of course, history. Now, I'm not sure that there is too much that we can necessarily learn for ourselves in terms of paths to follow from American history. It's always been an interesting course of study. I'll probably leave it at that. The third is literature. I personally think actually that the good people of America could learn quite a bit from our literature. I think we're really bastions in the field. Law is another area. Now this is interesting. I think New Zealand has always tried to ensure that we've learnt from the mistakes of the structure of the legal system in the United States. The first area, I would say, is the fact that the United States is perceived to be an overly litigious society, something that New Zealand has always tried very hard to avoid. And ACC is the perfect example. ACC is structured a no-fault scheme, structured around the idea of trying to provide coverage for all New Zealanders without becoming Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair.